Yes, we are live, raw and uncut. Yeah, Wax, Lee Judges, and Kevin Campbell. We are about to chop it up, guys. I need you to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if we are new. Let's get into this. Let's get into it. What's going on, people? Hey, little issue there. There we go. We sorted it. What's going on, peeps? Welcome to the channel. We've got Kev, we've got Lee. We are about to dive in, raw and uncut. How you guys doing?
All good, thank you. All
good. Happy New Year to you
Happy
and
New Year to
all
everybody.
the
Happy
people
New
who
Year.
joins us. Wax.
There we go. Happy New Year to every single one of you guys. Make sure we are hitting the like button. Do subscribe. We're going to dive in. We're going to be talking Arsenal. We've got a lot to actually dive into because I'm sure you guys agree there's been a bit of turbulence, a little bit of turbulence. I mean, we're safe to say that, you know, the plane hasn't crashed yet, but there are concerns, slight concerns with the pilot of the plane. And that's what we're going to dive into, Mr. Mikel Arteta. Kev, I want to start with you. I want to know your thoughts on Arteta. Like the 4-year process. Give me how you're feeling after what we've seen and been through so far.
I feel pretty comfortable. I'm not saying that I'm 100% sold, but you never can be until you bring the big silverware in. So, apart from bringing the big silverware in, the question is, how do you know a manager could win the league? You don't until they win the league. So the next best thing is, can they make you a challenger? And he's proven he can make us a challenger. So for whatever you argue about, you don't agree with this decision, that decision. I mean, last season, we really should have won it last season, but
100%.
for a couple of injuries, if we're honest. You know, that would have taken us really close. But again, no season is the same. And we make a couple of signings in the summer. Timber was really exciting. Rice was exciting. Havertz, everyone was like, oh, you know, we're not sure. But when Timber got injured, you saw the way, even though we're not playing as fluently, we still could get the job done. And until probably 3 weeks ago, Wax, we're sitting pretty at the top of the league. There was 3 weeks ago, there was no problems. Normally it's November where we have our wobble. But now it's a bit later and it's December and it feels worse, doesn't it? Having a wobble now than it would in November. So I understand all the, you know, people not being happy and all that. I'm not happy. I want Arsenal to win. Of course I do. Exactly. But as you asked me about the manager, I'm pretty comfortable with the manager right now. We're in January. Let's see what we can do, you know, trying to get a couple more bodies in. And I'll be honest with you, we've not even really played our strongest side at any stage. So if we haven't done that and we're still sitting in fourth and we're in touching distance, I'm all right. I'm not over the moon, but I'm all right.
I hear you. Lee, I'm sure your thoughts differ from Kev. How do you feel about Mikel Arteta and, you know, his 4-year process so far?
Listen, I'm with Kev. I'm still backing him, but I'm not. There are worrying things that have happened, like, you know. But as Kev said, like, I come away from Anfield a couple of weeks just before Christmas, convinced that we've got a chance of winning the title because of the way we played in that game. And then we've had the knockbacks of the Fulham and the West Ham games, and they dent your confidence as a fan. I don't care what anybody says; those games dent your confidence. You start then looking back on a couple of results. I was just talking earlier with the guys on the previous one done. Chelsea away was a shocker. We should have lost that game, but we got 2 goals back in that game, and it covered up the deficiencies that we've seen in these last couple of games. I think it's massive now what Mikel does now, because I think that there are questions that have been put at his door. Why was we so good last season? Why have you changed it around this season with the tactics and things like that? Why change the goalkeeper when I didn't think there was a need to change it? Why have you not got a tune out of Martinelli, Saka and Jesus this season as much as you did last season? And I agree with Kevin. You know, I do think it may have been a little bit different if Timber would have stayed fit. You know, that's a big blow for us. That was like, you know, to spend that sort of money and then get him injured within one game, the first game of the season. That don't happen very often, does it? And I think Thomas Partey being out for so long now, it's just started to take its toll. I don't think we can turn around and say, well, we've missed Partey because Declan Rice has been doing fantastic for us. But these couple of games when, you know, if you look back at the last time Thomas Partey played, 0-0 against Man City, he come on that 15 minutes, just took us over the line. So I do think that players not being available as hinder us a little bit, like, you know. But I think there's got to be questions on Mikel at this moment in time, because he has sort of tweaked it. He has changed it. If you tweak it, I go back to the goalkeepers and
what do you think? Sorry to interject here. What do you think he's actually changed though? Because when I look at the football itself, I feel like everything's still the same. I think the only thing that's actually changed is the profile of player that's come into the team. And when you bring a profile that doesn't have the same qualities as the player that you had previously, that's how you will start seeing changes, because maybe they're not adapting to the system. The person I'm kind of highlighting here is Kai Havertz and Granit Xhaka. I think that change has kind of been detrimental to the overall system and the way we play football.
I feel where it's changed. And with you, as a fan, it was entertaining. I'm not going to lie, it was entertaining. But as a coach, it would probably be a nightmare. Is that I think this season we've had more a possession base we controlled the games a little more. Like I think last season it was like we was creating a lot of chances, but we was also conceding a lot of chances. There was a lot of what I would say basketball football at times, you know. Like I think that we've changed that. Now at the end of the day, we've changed that and we've not improved. That's where the problem lies. You know what I mean? Like I see we've had control over games. I've actually watched games, and even the Liverpool game this season was completely chalk and cheese to the one last season, and we got a point out of each. You know what I mean? If I'll be really honest, I'd love it to be the game of the 2-2. From a coach's point of view, he's going to go, no, I prefer the 1-1 when we had a little bit more control over it. That's how I see it. And I totally agree with what Kevin said. You know, no one's got a divine right to win a title, particularly in this era when you're up against the likes of Manchester City, Liverpool, Chelsea spending 300 million. Yeah, millions in a. So when you look at it like that, it's, you know, like 300 million in a January transfer, 200 odd million or 300 in the next, you know, and they're nowhere near competing. So at the end of the day, you have to give a little bit of context to it all. George Graham was the first manager that in my lifetime that convinced me that Arsenal could win a title in '89. We nearly blew it, but at that moment in time, we'd never been near a title as growing up. Kevin will allude to that as well. Like, you know, George Graham won that, then he won it, and then he changed things around by the goalkeeping situation when he got rid of a fan's favourite in John Lukic, and there was questions about David Seaman coming in. David Seaman nailed it straight away. End of. And there wasn't a discussion. Right, you know, that's been the problem. Now, I'm not saying it's Arteta. Arteta's got every right to change the goalkeeper. When Ray has had to come in, he has had to be nigh on perfect, and that's what he hasn't been. It hasn't been a great thing, and I think that's upset the apple cart of fans. I don't know about in the dressing room. Kevin would have. I can only talk about the fans. Kevin can talk about what it was like in the dressing room, but I see it on the terraces when Aaron Ramsdale is out there. They're all calling his name. When Raya got injured against Fulham, like they're all singing Aaron Ramsdale's name. It ain't. It's not David Raya's fault, and I feel for him. Like, you know what I mean? I do feel for him for that point, but I have not got the same affection for him as I have David Raya. That's not his fault neither. So it's been put in a real difficult situation. And the thing is, I'm going to be really honest. I never had feelings for David Seaman when he first came in there. One, because I lost my player that I liked in John Lukic. The David Seaman name didn't really. I didn't want that Seaman on the back of my shirt. You know what I mean? Like, if I've been really honest, you know. And then, but his performances won me over. That season when Kevin won the league in '91, you know. there was some sensational saves along the way in those games. I remember the one at Sunderland. Do you remember that? Like towards the end of the season, we won 1-0 up there.
1-0.
Bank Holiday Monday.
Martin Hayes.
Yeah, one of the worst games of it, and he makes this unbelievable save, and you think to yourself, "Wow." And I don't mean, you might think I'm silly when I say this, like, you know, the goal against Fulham, I'm not blaming David Raya for that, like, you know what I mean? But I think Ramsdale might have saved that, you know what I mean? Like, because he'd done those wonder saves last season. I don't see those sort of wonder saves. And I think that's put a bit of pressure on Arteta, and that's where I see it from the goalkeeping point of view. Kai Havertz one, I quite like Kai Havertz. I'm not going to lie. I see things in there. Me and Dan argue about it till the cows come home, you know what I mean? I see things in Kai Havertz I quite like, other people don't. So sometimes it's about opinions, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, you know, with the Kai Havertz situation, I think that he's a good player, and, you know, he has kind of to a degree demonstrated that. I think there's so much more to come from Kai Havertz. When we signed him, I was very optimistic because I was looking at the Kai Havertz of Bayern Leverkusen. I was giving myself context for Chelsea and why, you know, it wasn't a success, and it all made sense. And I thought, you know what, we could see something here. It started off slow, past couple of games, better than we see it initially. But I feel like that signing, that profile of player for the role that Mikel Arteta is trying to play him has disjointed the midfields. There's a lack of control in that midfield. I know you said earlier we're controlling games now, but I feel like there is a lack of control in the midfield because maybe there's just a lack of understanding of how Mikel Arteta wants all three of those players to play, Declan, Odegaard, and Kai Havertz. And when you switch Kai Havertz and Trossard, I still feel like there's the similar issue. Then you got Zinchenko inverting, being caught quite a lot of the time this season, out of position, caught in midfield. I feel that's kind of down to the fact that there's no one's really orchestrating that midfield the way it was being orchestrated last season under Granit Xhaka. And I think that's another problem. And that also leads me on to saying why Martinelli is also suffering based on the same issue that I'm talking about here. But the attacking identity for me at Arsenal is a big problem. Do you guys feel the same? Do you feel like there's the players look disjointed, moving the ball into the final third? There's no real patterns. It's just kind of go to Saka, go to Martinelli, and kind of hit and hope in those moments. What's your thoughts, Kev?
Wax, I disagree. Let me tell you why. Because the players know how to play. Martinelli, Saka, and Jesus just haven't been the same players.
Do you reckon?
They haven't, because they're getting the balls in the same spots. I don't think they've been as dynamic as they were last season. And some of it, I've got to say, is the opposition. Because now the opposition know we can't leave Martinelli one-on-one. We can't leave Saka one-on-one. So what are they starting to do? You're seeing so many doubling ups happening. So, because you've got to double up, so they pass it inside, and we'll live with that. And we haven't been as good in the last third as we were last season. That's just the bottom line. We haven't. Yeah. Now,
but why do you think that is? Why do you think that is, though?
Because the players ain't playing as well as they were last season. Don't forget, we had Martinelli, Odegaard, Saka, and Jesus in double figures. They was no other team in Europe had the top four boys in double figures. What are we looking at now? What are we looking at now? I think Solanke's got more than all of them put together.
I hear you. No, you're right. You're right.
So that tells you our weaponry at the top end of the pitch are not playing as well as they were last season. And
do you reckon it's the players or the way the players are actually being asked to play, or the system itself? The style of play itself. The style of play, should I say?
The players know how. Listen, and again, it's easy to say, is it the way they're being asked to play? It's not that simple. When you get on the pitch, you have to make your own decisions. Martinelli knows how to get on the pitch and score. Saka does. Jesus does. Odegaard does. They just haven't been at the same level. And this is our problem. And this is why we will all cry out for a number 9. Because when you've got that number 9, come rain, come shine, come snow, come high water, he wants his quota of goals. And sometimes that's all you've got to lean on. Somebody who's going to get you 20, 25 goals a season he'd probably be the one carrying the team right now. So you don't need to rely on Martinelli, Saka, Jesus, and Erdegaard. But we haven't got that. We do things by committee. You know, everybody's got to chip in. And when they're not chipping in, when they're not scoring goals, they've all had chances to score. They've all fluffed their lines. And it will cost us in the end.
You know what it is though, Kev? Like I've seen, like, see what we're seeing and what you're kind of talking about. We've actually seen this under Mikel Arteta since he's actually arrived. The data is there to prove it as well. So this is the reason why I can't say it's the players. I can't say, oh, the players are not turning up, because the data proves that Arsenal
well, they turned up last season is my point.
I know, but we can look at the data. We can understand why they turned up last season as well. You know why? Because there was 3 players that come into Arsenal last season that single-handedly changed Arsenal. Saliba, I mean, the data will prove why. Jesus and Zinchenko. Now, those 3 players coming in, we've got Zinchenko and Jesus coming from a team that just won the league in Man City. The mentality of those players are fiery. They're ready to come in, hit the ground running, lead from the front, lead by example, all of that type of stuff. The way we started playing last season as well, we started inverting Zinchenko. I don't think the oppositional teams preempt that, and we took advantage of that. We obviously had Granit Xhaka orchestrating things in the middle of the park, which gave us balance in the middle of the park. And that also allowed Jesus, Martinelli, and Saka, as well as Odegaard, to be free and express themselves the way they wanted to. On that basis, we scored a bunch of goals and we've done extremely well. Defensive-wise, we fell off towards the end of the season. I've got the data here. I've got the stats in front of me. Let me just run through the stats for the 4 seasons that we've had. All we've got is 3.5 seasons worth of data plus this season that would call it 4. But 3.5 seasons is what we're going to go by. Forget this season so far, right? So we've got 8th finish, 5th finish, and 2nd finish. That's the position. That's the positions that Mikel Arteta has finished. Now, when you look at the positions, it looks fantastic. You look like, oh yeah, there's growth there. There's progression there. But when you look at the stats within themselves, you open up that data. When you look in the actual data itself, you start asking questions. Now, in Arteta's first half a season, he got 10 losses altogether. I think 4 of those losses or 5 of those losses were Unai Emery and Ljungberg combined, yeah? And the other 5 would have been Arteta. We've gone into the 2nd season. We finished 8th again. This is off the back of winning the FA Cup.
And that was no one in the stadium, right? You remember?
Yeah, so we won the FA Cup. That was no one in the stadium.
But this is the year after that where there was no one in the stadiums. We won on a record losing streak at the Emirates.
So basically what happened is Mikel Arteta took over. We went on a lovely run, 15 games. I don't think we actually lost any of those games. I think the only game we drawn against Chelsea or something like that. Then we lost in the Europa League. Then we went into C19, lockdown, Premier League restart, football had changed, didn't look the same as it did prior to that. Won the FA Cup with that football. Then Mikel Arteta is now trying to implement his identity at the club. That season we signed Thomas Partey, Gabriel Magalhaes, Willian, all of those dons. We find ourselves by October, November sitting 15th in the league. We're on a losing streak of maybe I think it's 10 games that we haven't won a game.
Yeah, and that was nobody in the stadiums.
No, not then. Everyone was back.
It was. There was 2 lockdowns.
Okay, there was 2 lockdowns. You're right.
Yeah, there was 2. Because if you remember correctly, the first part, Mikel Arteta actually called the C word first.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you remember a back end of that season?
That season, there was no fans in the stadium all season.
Yeah. And then the next one, fans were allowed in the stadium, I think, further on down the line somewhere. So it's broken up, Wax. It was broken up. It's my point, because we went on a losing streak at the Emirates. We nearly lost 5 games. Do you want to know how I know? Because I was at the Southampton game, pitch side, with nobody in the stadium. And Southampton, I think, was Theo Walcott, and them boys were peppering us, and we just about got a draw out of it to stop 5 losses in a row. So
let me I hear you. Let me just quickly finish this anyway. So that season anyway, we finished 8th again. Now the points, we got 55 goals in that season, 39 conceded, and 61 points. Yeah, we got 13 losses. Now the following season, he signed Ramsdale, he signed all of these dons, 13 losses again. and we got only 61 goals, 48 goals conceded. So we conceded more goals that with Ramsdale and Ben White at the back and Gabriel Magalhaes the season after than we did the season prior with David Luiz at the back. So there's regression. There's no significant improvement there.
Yeah, but
obviously, about the league position, however, will tell you different because we finished 5th other than 8th. Then we go into the new season, and this is when Saliba has his first full season. Now, just to show you that Saliba single-handedly changed his defense, because in the second season, or in Saliba's first full season, we only lost 6 games. The previous season before that, same defense, no difference other than Zinchenko.
No, it wasn't the same.
It was. I said it's only Saliba and Zinchenko that we've added to it. Who did we add?
That's 2 out of 4. That's 50% change.
But then bearing in mind, we're calling Zinchenko a crap defender today, so we can't say Zinchenko.
No. You might be calling him crap.
He is crap. Come on, defensively.
But he was instrumental in how we played and why we got runners up last year.
Yeah, no, I hear you. No,
so
absolutely.
We've got to weigh up the balance, is what I'm saying.
Absolutely. No, I agree with that. But the point is that when Zinchenko in that season was more or less doing a lot of offensive work. I wouldn't say he was responsible for doing a lot of defensive work. He was getting back and obviously covering and doing a job as a left back, but a lot of the work was being done by Ben White, Gabriel Magalhaes, and William Saliba. However, the numbers have increased significantly in terms of the last season, because we had 13 losses and now we've got 6 losses. But what I wanted to really highlight was the goals that we're conceded, because in last season, we conceded 43 goals. The season before that, we conceded 48 goals. The season before that, we conceded 39 goals. And the season before that, we conceded 48 goals. So there hasn't really been a massive change defensively in terms of the amount of goals we're conceding. Last season, we obviously scored 15 goals more than we scored previously. So there's been a little bit of a change. But the reason I wanted to mention that data is because there hasn't really been significant improvements if you look at that data, and if you compare it to where we're at today in this season, we're actually worse off. Now the only difference is that we find ourselves in a better position. We find ourselves in a better position than we did when we had these similar results when we finished 8th that time. Do you understand? But the results are more or less the same. So the point I'm getting to is that I haven't seen a significant improvement, attacking wise or defensive wise, even though there's more positioning awareness, more structure, a bit more organization. I'm not really seeing a team that is equipped to go and win the league. These numbers ain't telling me that the manager that we've got right now is equipped to win the league, because the numbers are just not adding up. Do you understand what I mean? There hasn't been.
Yeah, but okay then, Wax. If that's what you're saying, and I'll put this to you and Mr. Judges.
Yeah.
If you don't see a team that's equipped to win the league, how could we nearly win the league last season?
Well, you've got to take into context that a lot of teams fell off last season. We didn't have the same amount of competition.
Not what I asked.
It's a good point.
If you say you don't see no improvement or nothing, how could we be a team that should have won the league last season then? Because we should have won it.
The thing is,
we didn't, though. That's the point. We didn't. And the numbers say why.
But we challenged. We challenged right to the end until obviously we got things went a bit pear-shaped when Saliba wasn't there. Tommy Arsenal in that European game, both of them got injured. And it kind of went pear-shaped after that.
In 8 months of Saliba, we only conceded 18 goals. The moment Saliba got injured, in the space of 2 months, we conceded 25 goals. So that shows you Saliba single-handedly was the improvement defensively.
Wax, we know how good he is. But my question
Mikel Arteta,
but he does. But how do you replace a Saliba?
Saliba's coming and saved him, basically.
No, but
if we never had Saliba last season, it would have been finito.
Yeah, but we do. So we can't go hypothetical and say if we don't have him, he's our player. No,
absolutely. But the point I was making is what I'm trying to get at is that Mikel Arteta didn't know how to identify the quality of William Saliba. We nearly lost him. 3 seasons on loan. We nearly lost him.
To who? Who did we nearly lose him to?
He was ready to go at one point.
He was going nowhere.
No, I'm agreeing with Kevin on it. Like the Saliba one, I think Arsenal handled that. I think they handled that fantastic. We had a lot of problems back in his personal life. He needed to be in France. They nurtured him very, very well there. Like, I will say
that was a year before he went to Marseille, though. You see that situation with his family? That was a whole year.
Yeah, but he's young and probably needed to be around in France. Listen, I think that was a great thing because they roughed all the edges off him and he weren't making the mistakes at Arsenal, which is a different pressure and things like that. So I think they handled that really well. The thing is with stats that they can really. And I get what you're saying, Wax, and I understand what you're saying, but they do cover up 1,000 sins. Like, what you got to look at is, and the best one to look at is 8th, 5th, 2nd. That's the one to look at. Like, what I mean? There's been improvements, and I do think that under Arteta there has been improvements in the way we're playing. I never believed we was going to win the league last season because I just felt that Manchester City was so much better. This season, though, my expectations, and that's down to the manager, has made me expect that we could challenge and win the league this season. And perhaps I'm going to go. I'm going to be heading for a heavy fall because of that. And I think that Arteta has got a very, very good defence inside of him to play with now. But players make mistakes. It's not the manager's fault that on occasions they make mistakes. I look at also, I'm going to have to bring the game up again, when we talk about the attacking sense and all that, listen, we created more than enough chances against West Ham to win that game. It wasn't like I would be more worried. The game that's worried me more than anything is the Fulham game. Yeah. The Fulham game, because I looked at the game against Fulham. We scored, didn't do nothing in that game until they scored, and then we come back out again. Now, is that the players doing that, or is that the manager? Now, I looked on the line that day.
Could we?
Say again, kid?
We couldn't respond.
Couldn't respond, and I looked at Arteta, and he's going mad on the bench. So. Whether it's a little bit of both, the players, I don't know, are believing in the. I don't know, but something not right after that Fulham game, and that's where he's got to put it right. I think as I go back to the Chelsea game for 70 minutes there, we were awful. Should have been 3 or 4-0 down, but somehow a brilliant bit of individual play from Declan Rice gets you out of it, and then you go to Trossard, and we get a draw out of it. And Kevin makes a very, very good point about a striker. I think even Manchester City went through phases like that last season when they're treble, they're not playing well. All of a sudden, bang, bang, they're 3-0 up. Haaland scored 3 chances, and it covers all. I've played in teams, probably Kevin, you
multitude of sins.
Yeah, and you think I've sat in the dressing room running my arse off and we're 3-0 up, and you think, well, how are we 3-0 up because we've had 3 chances and we've banged in 3 goals. I think you're right, Kev, that somewhere along the line that is going to bite us, because you even look at the game against West Ham, Jesus has 2-3 headers in that game that that Haaland would bang away like. But Haaland's missed chances. Let's not get that wrong. He has missed chances. Every striker misses chances, but 9 times out of 10 they get them. And I do think that there is a little bit of the system as not quite helped. I think if you look at this season, our wide players seem to be a lot more wide than they were last season. So the fullbacks ain't coming over and all that. And I'm going to have to pull up this thing about Zinchenko. No one was saying Zinchenko was poor defending last season. I remember coming out of White Hart Lane. He was magnificent in that game in the 2-0 win. The only time this has started to come in was that Liverpool game when he got skinned in that Liverpool game. But I look back on it now, Saliba's been done a couple of times this season. Like other players have been done. I just think there's I don't know if it's an agenda, but something just goes on players at times. And Zinchenko seems to be getting it. I don't think he's been nowhere near at the level that he has been last season. And I think you're right what you're saying, Wax. I think that at the end of the day, maybe because when he come in there, Xhaka went into a more advanced role, and we was out, and then he got on those areas and played there. I don't think Kai Havertz is that sort of a player, he's not got
Lee,
that personality neither.
Lee, one thing we're not discussing, and maybe because he's been injured, that Thomas Partey was the one who run that midfield.
He ran it, and he ran it very, very. He made it look easy.
He ran that midfield because don't forget, Granit Xhaka was further forward. He was assisting and scoring.
You know what it is? It's so mad. I agree. I think the partnership that Thomas Partey and Granit Xhaka formed was incredible, and that's what carried that midfield last season. But one thing I noticed last season is that the left channel on the left-hand side, Granit Xhaka was really orchestrating what was going on there. So, for example, if Granit Xhaka was central, he would always demand for Zinchenko to offer Martinelli support. So Martinelli, that left-hand side was always getting support. If Zinchenko cut inside and become that central midfielder, Xhaka would bomb forward and either push to the left to give Martinelli the license to go in and still offer him the support. He's not really getting as much of that now. It's kind of the vocal point is Kai Havertz trying to make those runs, and Martinelli's just isolated in the corner, not getting nothing whatsoever. And it's literally killing his game. But I think that's what we're missing at because of Granit Xhaka. And Thomas Partey equally done a fantastic job.
There's some tweaks to be done, for sure. There's some tweaks to be done because you got to remember, Granit Xhaka, that was his best season he ever had at Arsenal last
season. Never had, yeah.
And he was magnificent last season, right? He was magnificent in that midfield. But the linchpin of our midfield is Thomas Partey. Why? Because of the way he maneuvers the ball and the way he can pass the ball through the lines.
Yeah.
I think if Declan Rice, I said it at the start, we haven't played our best team yet, maybe for a little bit where he came on against Man City and that's what got us over the line. Thomas Partey would help Declan Rice no end. But we still come down to the facts. Lee mentioned it. We create chances and we don't take them. That's not the manager.
Do you reckon it's the chances? But do you reckon it's the chances that we're creating? Are we creating clear-cut chances? Are they clear enough? You know, are they?
How clear do you want them, Wax? I mean, God.
It's just because I see a lot of crosses into the box. You know, a lot of crosses into the box of players that is not getting up for headers. You can't get up for headers. You know, I'm not really seeing other patterns moving the ball into the box.
Wax, let me tell you something. We're not. One thing we're not. We are not Man City in how we move. We are not Liverpool in how we attack. We are Arsenal. We create chances. And if it has to be headers, it's got to be headers. Because you know what? You can't. We've seen it before where we're trying to create the perfect chance. It's not going to happen. Jesus knows. Against West Ham, he should have got a couple of headers easy. That should have been easily done because he's very good in the air and he should have hit the target. Our boys up top are just not playing to the level that they were last season.
You're right. You know what, Kev?
That's what needs to be addressed as far as I'm concerned.
It's extremely alarming. It's one of the reasons I mentioned the data and looked at the stats earlier is because obviously we've seen that it's not just this season. Obviously, last season we were phenomenal in front of goal, but seasons prior we have been disastrous in front of goal. Whether it's Aubameyang, whether it's Lacazette, whether it's Pepe, whether it's who we've got now, there's been question marks. And ultimately, you can't say, "Oh, it's just the players." Because in 4 years, Mikel Arteta he's had about 10 attackers altogether. I'm including Havertz, Willian, players that will play on the right wings and the left wings as well, right? Altogether, 10 attackers in the space of 4 years. Altogether, they only have 124 goals. 10 attackers.
Yeah, but Wax, you could say that and you could put them all together. No team in Europe had what we had last season. No team. So does that make us wrong or does that make us unique?
But look, but it's based on what that it could be a fluke though. It's one season out of the four.
But it could make it a fluke.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, you're using stats, so let's use the stats. No team in Europe had it. So if the players know they can score double figures, and we're halfway through the season now, and they are nowhere near it, is it the manager or is it the players? For me,
I say it's a bit of both. Both of them have to take responsibility. Players need to step up in games.
I think the manager will never ever put the players in a position that will make them uncomfortable. They know what to do. They know what to do. You tell me Martinelli don't know what to do. Saka don't know what to do. Jesus, four-time Premier League winner, doesn't know what to do.
But you know what it is? They're making the same mistakes though. Like Martinelli, for example, he's doing well to get himself into a position to put the ball into the box, but he's just putting the ball into the box and no one's there. Now, if the team,
But
if
that's
the
not
attackers,
down to the manager.
But
It's
listen,
down
it has to
him.
be. It has to be. If the attackers are cohesive, if they've got a strategy, a game plan on how they're transitioning that ball into the final third, and they've been drilled with that in training, then even if Martinelli plays with his heads down and he gets into a position to put the ball into the box, he has an expectation based on the strategy and the game plan that there's going to be players there. If the players are not anticipating that move at the right time, can you blame
That's
Martinelli?
not the manager. But my point is, Wax, that's not the manager's fault.
But it could be based on the
You're
fact that the
getting
players.
chances to score and you don't take them, how can you blame the manager?
I hear you. I hear that. But I'm talking about, I know in those scenarios, I'm talking about players anticipating those moves. If they were being drilled with attacking exercises,
Which they are. Wax,
players would know when to run, how to run.
Wax, there's one thing you fail to understand.
Go on.
There's an opposition there.
I hear you.
And the opposition, you watch some of that West Ham game back. West Ham packed the middle of the box. They didn't care. All right, Martinelli, you could do what you want wide. Saka, we'll double team you because we know you can do probably a little bit more than Martinelli at times. But we're going to make sure we block the middle of our box. And we are going to make life so much more difficult for you. So you're going to have to do something different. What did we have to do in the end? We had to cross them a bit higher for Jesus to get chances. That's adapt. We had to adapt.
What I would criticise the manager for, Kev, is, and I totally agree with what you're saying, like, not so much the West Ham game because we created loads of chances, but when it's not happening, we had a game against Brentford, if you remember rightly, Kai Havertz scores the goal. He didn't create anything in that game. Now, you're right that the players are being put into a different position in the block. And what happens is Saka gets the ball and they're saying to him, right, go on the outside, but you're right on the wing, so you can't go on the outside. So I want you coming inside, and we're going to put an extra midfield player in there and we're going to block it up. Like, my argument with Arteta and what he could do is swap the wingers over. Say, right, for 20, it's not working. Saka, you go out on the left, see if you can get around the back that way, and Martinelli. We just keep continuing to keep doing the same thing all the time. That would be my criticism of the man.
Why is that though? But Kev, why is that though? Come on.
But here's what I've got to say to you. Now, whether you swap the wingers or not, the likes of Newcastle, West Ham, Fulham, they're going to block the middle of the box. So whether you switch them or not, they know Arsenal are going to have to come through the middle of our box to score, because that's the way Arsenal do it.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, I agree.
I understand, Lee, a different look and all that.
Yeah,
know.
Just try something different. That's all I'm saying. Like,
Yeah,
you know that's my criticism.
Lee, but you got to remember, the opposition are not stupid. The opposition that. The opposition know, okay, if Saka and Gabriel Martinelli switch, they've kind of won.
All right.
Because
it's like the West Ham game. Go on. It's like one of the goals in the West Ham game.
Different.
One of the goals in the West Ham game, sorry there, Kev, is like one of the goals that they scored. What was the score again? I can't remember. I think it was the first goal, yeah? The pattern that West Ham put together in order to put that goal in the back of the net was incredible. I haven't seen Arsenal do that or even come close to doing that in quite some time. It shows me that when it comes to the attackers, I think what's going on now is why there's a slight disjointed attack for Arsenal, in my opinion, is the ball's getting to Saka a lot, and Saka is trying to be the main guy. He wants to go for goals straight away. I understand it and I want it, right? But what that's doing is now rubbing off on Martinelli. So when Martinelli gets the ball, he's doing the same thing. So now we're having a level of selfishness in that area where we're relying on desperate moments. We're being desperate. We're not taking our chances cleanly. And that's the reason why, do you understand? And I think because of the way we're using Saka, I think that's rubbing off on Martinelli and potentially having a negative effect on him. And we're losing an identity in that final third. I think it's boiling down to being desperate and a bit of selfishness.
Do you see what happens when Saka gets the ball mostly? When Saka gets the ball mostly, there's 2 or 3 players who who move over to his side.
Yeah.
So Saka's not trying to take them on all the time. What he's trying to do is trying to draw them in, and he's trying to move the ball quickly so it goes round to the other side. But
Mainly
again,
just passing back, yeah.
But again, that's what you should do, because they're going to be weak somewhere else. But what these teams do realize, Wax and everybody, is that no matter what happens, we've got to keep the middle strong. Because even though they're going to move the ball around, and you see us camped in their half, and we keep the ball and we keep moving it around, you always see them in the middle of their box, very strong.
Yeah.
Because they know very rarely Arsenal are going to shoot from 30 yards. Very rare. And what Arsenal are going to try and do, Arsenal are going to try and play through you. And unless we get 1v1s on the outside, or sometimes Saka moves inside and he tries to get into the box, which I think he had one against West Ham where he hit the post, didn't he? Where he's moved inside.
Yeah.
But you're only going to get so many of that because there's so much traffic inside.
The other thing is, Kev, is I agree. Arsenal struggle against teams like that. Like, I ain't really fearing Liverpool this week, because Liverpool come out and play.
Come and attack us.
And that's why the Anfield, Liverpool would have loved it that Arsenal played that game, because they've suffered from the low block as well. Like most teams do, to be fair, you know what I mean? So I see what you're saying there, but when we play like Liverpool, we play, I don't know, Manchester City, it'll be attack for attack, and I like the way, let's not go. When you look at Arteta, he tactically got it spot on against Manchester City, the way he played that day. It was spot on. It's these games here, and as I say with the West Ham game, look, Saka should have scored a couple. You even go back to the Liverpool game, we should have scored. I think Saka went 1-on-1, and then just as Martinelli's going to score, he slips. But Liverpool missed chances in that game as well, So that's how those sort of games pan out. But what is the problem at the moment is, and what worries me is that West Ham, and I think probably David Moyes is the one that he's put this blueprint out how to beat Arsenal. He's done it in the League Cup tie, even when they were at home. He went the same format. He's done it again, and other teams are going to be looking at that, Kev, and going, right, that's how you beat Arsenal. That is how you beat Arsenal, like doing this, keeping the light like that. So Mikel then has to come up with something to counter-attack that. Now, if it means going on the outside and getting Kai Havertz in at the middle for headies, I don't know. But it seems that we've been a little bit found out.
Yeah.
On game.
That's
my third opinion.
Let me just counteract that then.
Yeah, go on.
Because if we created 30 chances against West Ham, 30.
Yeah, I'm not talking about West Ham. Forget about the West Ham. I'm talking about...
No, but what I'm saying is the games where we don't create chances, Fulham, after going 1-0 up and then going 2-1 down, we didn't respond. We didn't create anything. Yeah. Newcastle away, we created nothing all day.
No, that's it. Brentford, we didn't really create.
We didn't create much. We got the break. But those
exactly, we've had little breaks. Exactly that. We've had little breaks. We didn't get the break against Newcastle. We got it against Chelsea. Got it against Brentford. Didn't get it against Fulham.
But that's what happens during the season. It's like we've forgotten. A title-winning season isn't all hunky-dory, guys.
Yeah, no,
it
of course.
Isn't all hunky-dory. You're going to have your blips. You're going to have your times where you don't play well. The key is we've got to stay in it for the turn of the year, and when it gets to February, March, and you're right in it, the mix, that's when that's what City done to us last season, didn't they? They just hung on in there, and then all of a sudden, De Bruyne and Haaland came together, and nobody could stop them.
Yeah,
that's what we've got to learn.
I mean, I'm sure you understand why I'm a bit skeptical over the attacking numbers. Obviously we've 100%. Seen it. We've done the eye test. We've seen that it's it's questionable.
Wax. 100%.
But I mean, even this. I just want to show you this. This is what Sky Sports put up the other day. You guys probably see this. This is the percentages from last season until this season, and there's a massive drop off. This is really concerning. And if you want to win the league, I mean, we have to really improve in terms of shot conversion. 15, 14, 11 for our attackers last season, which is good numbers for, you know, wide players and an attacking midfielder. You would probably say Jesus needs to increase that, but bearing in mind he was out for 4 months last season. However, Jamie Carragher the other day, he said that the minimum standard for scorers that, or for teams that win the league and for their attackers in terms of shot conversion should be 20% at a bare minimum. So if you're looking across the board, you're looking at Haaland, Harry Kane, all of those type of players, their shot conversion is 20% plus. In our best season, we had Martinelli on 19, but it's still wasn't enough.
But
clearly.
we haven't got one.
But now look at the dip. Now look at the dip. That's even more worrying because
Wax, we haven't got, and this is the problem, Wax.
And then you think, why are we not going to get a striker?
Like I mentioned about number 9, we haven't got one.
Why are we not going to get one then? We need one.
Well, we know we need one. Listen,
you've got the media telling us we're going to prioritise a left back.
Even last season, we knew we weren't as clinical as some of those other teams. We knew it. But what was getting us through was our defence. And we were getting our nose in front. We could defend and we could win games. But those stats there are telling. If we're going to challenge, those players, those stats are good, but they've got to be better if you want to win the league. We are way off last season's stats.
That's what I'm saying.
You know, we are way off. And
but again,
but Wax, I'm just saying that's why I say it's gonna bite us if the players don't buck up, or we don't go and get a striker to help move us on.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Again, this is the whole reason why I brought up the attacking stats from under Aubameyang and so on and so forth, because that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing what we've just looked at with Marcelo Saka, like the massive decline. We saw the same thing with Aubameyang and that, and it didn't end well. You know, we went through a process of having to terminate those contracts. That's not going to be the same these, man. But if Arsenal can't generate results, if Arsenal can't get results, then what happens to our players? How do we renew their contracts? Bearing in mind, we've just given these guys all 200+K. You know, it's we need to sort it out. And Mikel Arteta needs to be able to switch it up, in game, before game, especially when it comes to, how we're moving the ball into the final third, in my opinion. I think
I've got a question for you two.
Go on.
How do you gauge if we're good enough? How do you gauge if Arsenal are good enough to win the league?
How I gauge it on games against teams like Fulham, when you're expected to win, you're not playing quite well, but you get the job done. I see Aston Villa. I've seen I've seen Manchester City and Liverpool not quite. I'll say this now: if Liverpool and Manchester City, which can happen, go 1-0 down away at Fulham, go 1-0 up against Fulham, they won't lose that game. They'll end up drawing it or whatever, or
winning.
Or winning. When I've seen teams win the league, listen, let's go back to 1998. This time in December, we lost 3-1 at Blackburn. In 97, lost 3-1 at home to Blackburn. If you'd have turned around to me and said at that moment in time that Arsenal won't lose another game until they win the title against Everton, and we win the league and the double, I would have said, you deluded, you this and this and that.
Straight jacket. I need a straight jacket.
Straight jacket. But they did. So you can't really go in that. And you remember, Manchester United were lots of points in front then. So it is hard to gauge it. But what I do gauge it on teams, what I've seen win the league, and I've seen that, is in 2002, I knew at a very early stage we was going to win that league, despite Liverpool and Man United being in the hunt. Because when I looked at other teams, we were better. I looked at our players, and
how do you gauge them, Wax?
I guess it's similar to what Lee said, really. It's about, for me, we're gauging how good a team is the question, yeah?
No, I said, how do you gauge whether you believe we can win the league?
How do you gauge whether you can win?
Yeah, how do you get? How would you
So
gauge?
Again, it's more, but less for me. It's about mentality going into the games, how we're playing in those games, how we're treating the big games, the big teams. But I think for me, it's about overall mentality as well as what I'm seeing on the pitch. Do you know what I mean? I think Arsenal over the past, say 18 months have shown me a strong mentality, giving me confidence that we can actually go, all the way and win the league. And that's all I've needed. What I've been skeptical about is the football on display. I haven't fully bought into the football on display. But that's all I need. I need mentality. People going out there working hard, showing me that they actually want to win a game. Arsenal have definitely demonstrated that this season, going to the final end of the game, getting those injury time goals. That is showing me that, yes, this is a team that actually want to win. This is a team that have the mentality to go to the end and win. But it also needs to come into conjunction with the football that's being played. Do you know what I mean? The football.
I'll tell you another thing, Kev, which is very, very important, which I've seen over the years, and you will agree with this as well. Team spirit, the dressing room when you get you over the line in games. I've seen a little bit discontent with this season. Do you know when you've won games, whatever level you played at, and you think, oh God, we won that because we got a good dressing room, and I've seen chinks in it. I see little things at Fulham. I don't know if it's just a one-off game at Fulham.
Yeah, people ain't happy and stuff. Yeah, I know what you're saying. But one thing I will say to you two guys, you see, I gauge it differently. You know how I gauge how I think? Well, we can win the league. It's by our bench.
I mean, that's a part of it.
It's no, for me.
That's a great. It is a great point.
For me, it's our bench. I look at Man City's bench, and I look at Liverpool's bench, and I look at Arsenal's bench. Our bench is nowhere near as strong as theirs.
Yeah.
Because if you look at what Pep can do, and you look at what Klopp can do, they can bring on firepower after quality player. We've been playing catch up.
But why have we been playing catch up though, man? It's like we spent a lot of money though.
Because our squad, when Mikel took over, was a joke.
I know some of us can agree with that. It's so mad though, because I think it's Lee Gunner. He made a point, and he was putting list of players that Mikel Arteta inherited that were deemed good enough to maybe put ourselves in a position to try and challenge again, which is where we are at now. It's taken us 4 years, but he's basically saying we inherited some players that could have already done that for us. It didn't need to take nearly 700 million 4-year PR and so on and so forth. And I totally agree. If we look at the players that he has actually brought in, they're bit part players that were not a necessity. They weren't necessary. They weren't necessary in my opinion. Players that were given big money contracts, players that were given new contracts. Come on, how many players have we signed under Mikel Arteta? But you're telling me that Saka, Martinelli, and Saliba, who were here before Mikel Arteta, are still the 3 best players at the club
because they are
exactly. But you've spent 700 million.
No, but
you spent 700 million.
Yeah, but Wax, that's good planning. That's what you've got to do. The fact of the matter is, when Mikel came in.
Come on, 700 million.
Yeah, but we could look at that first team squad, and there were some good players in there.
Absolutely.
But they'd never, ever challenged.
But none of the players here, unless you talk about Jesus and Zinchenko.
No, but we're talking about what you mentioned about Lee Gunner, saying that the players were already there. None of them had already challenged. Mm-hmm. No, they were picking up good money. We had to pay most of them to leave.
I hear that.
The thing is, I think
that tells me everything.
You've got to say, Kev, like that.
Sorry, 1 second. The reason why we paid a lot of people to leave is because we went into a COVID pandemic. We had to restructure our finances. We've got a bunch of players who Mikel Arteta doesn't want on skyrocket wages. We need to get them out of the door. It was the easiest way to. It was the best way.
Wax, the point is, people are saying that these players were in our building who could have helped us. They couldn't help us, is my point. Because you know what? If I'm at Arsenal and I want to stay, I'm going nowhere.
Yeah, no, of course. But it's like, come on, man, we're human, man.
They all failed. They all failed.
One thing that Lee just mentioned was what things are like in the dressing room. And when things turn stale in the dressing room, no matter how qualified you are, no matter who you are, Messi, Ronaldo, everything's going to fall to shit. We saw what it was like with Ronaldo at Manchester United. You're trying to tell me that Aubameyang, a Golden Boot winner, back-to-back that you inherited, was lost? That was washed up? Is that what? It was washed up?
No. Aubameyang weren't washed up because Aubameyang helped us win an FA Cup, right?
Yeah.
And he done okay. But what was being asked of Aubameyang, let's be honest, Aubameyang couldn't do it anymore. He had to be he couldn't just be I sit on the shoulder of the last defender anymore. No, he had to participate a lot more. And that was the problem. Lacazette could do that. He could participate, but unfortunately, he didn't have the speed to then go on and get goals.
To the box. Yeah.
So we lost both of them in a sense where they were a good partnership, but it was timing, wasn't it?
Yeah. At the end of the day, Kim, look, forget about what other. He spent 600 million, but listen, the players that he's got now are better players than what he had when we first started. We've got Saliba and Gabriel, two players that most teams would want. Like when they say about 600 million, 105 million, that is on one player.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, which is it. Ben White, you're telling me that he's not had a great season this season, by his standard, but last season
has been good.
He's been good.
No,
Shevchenko's been good.
He was good.
Gabriel's been good. There's a few that haven't worked. I get that, but like you can go to every manager in there. I just see a little comment there saying about 6 goalkeepers. You know what I mean? I think, by the way, he's poor. And like that, the goalkeeping situation can go back to that. But Pep didn't get it right first time in goal. But, you know what I mean? Took him 3 or 4
goals, yeah.
3 or 4 goalkeepers to get it right. Always people are going to make mistakes. Now, the end, and I still say, it's a we found the perfect formula for that midfield last season. But for whatever reason, I don't know what happened with the Xhaka thing. Like, you know what I mean? Whether they could have convinced him to stay, I think it's been a big loss. But who got Xhaka playing to the level that he's playing at? You know what I mean? That was Arteta. Listen, I'll be honest. There's been certain things with the manager that I don't agree. I agree with or I don't agree, and it may take it so. He's been ruthless. People like Pepe, he's been ruthless with. He's been ruthless with, as we saw, Guendouzi. Been ruthless with Ramsdale for totally unnecessary, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Smith Rowe doesn't get the opportunities I think that maybe he deserves. Vieira's not worked. You can go. There's loads of things that have not happened at this moment in time, and with the 600 million, I get all of that. Like, you know what I mean? But
a lot of money.
Can you imagine money? But it ain't my money.
David Dean giving out 700 million and not even winning a league. How many leagues would David Dean expect?
Yeah, but you're saying that you've got. And I agree with you. I'm not spending that. Like, there's a manager just down the road at West London that spent 600 million in 2 transfer windows. You're up against Manchester City that are. Can spend a lot of money. Like, that won the treble last year. We went up against a team last season that won the treble. No one competed with them in anything else apart from us. We was the only team that put in a challenge last season. So I have to give Arteta a bit of credit for that. I do. What I will go on now is that he's not quite lived up to it now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what my biggest disappointment with Arteta this season, I don't give a about stats and whatever, is that we were over the hill and far better team than Liverpool last season and Tottenham and Aston Villa. And we spent more money than all those 3 teams, and they have caught up with us. Now, what Arteta has got to do is, and this is where he comes under pressure from me, I think now, can you get us, which you can get us to there, but can you get us over that line? That is the question now. He's got to, this season, with the decisions that he's made about the goalkeeper and a couple of other decisions, Thomas Partey, I'm going to go back to it, when he was available, was playing right back. They're the question, can you get us over the line? I'm not convinced he can.
Yeah, I mean, same here. I feel the feeling is mutual. I'm not overly convinced that Mikel Arteta can. I mean, for me,
I'm willing to back him. I'm willing to give him the opportunity to do it.
But this is it. This is exactly what I've done. People have known me for being Arteta out. People have seen it. I haven't screamed Arteta out for ages. But obviously, there was there's context to it. There's reasons as to why I felt that way at that time. But based on last season and how Arsenal performed, I was willing to say, you know what, credit where credit's due. You got a bit of benefit. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Basically, let's go again next season. Let's see how this goes. Now, I still feel I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm feeling pessimistic. I'm not feeling that way. I still feel slightly optimistic about our chances of winning this title. We're still, mathematically, it's still possible. We're still, what is it, 5 points behind?
We're halfway, aren't we?
Yeah, like anything can happen. You know, players can start turning up in the second half of the season. The Arsenal that we saw in the first half of last season could appear or emerge this second half of this season. We don't know what's going to happen, but I'm just slightly concerned, and I'm worried just about whether Arteta has the has it in him to take us over the line at the end of the day. Fair. I want a trophy this season.
Wax,
and it's not just a trophy.
What you say, what Lee says, that's fair. You're fans. We are fans. We're allowed to not be sure.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, as a fan, we want it to run as smooth as we can. Of course we do. We don't want too many bumps in the road. We want it to go smooth as it can. Now, the key is, like you showed them stats on the finishing, those players have to up them stats very quickly.
100%.
They have to. And Mikel Arteta and Edu have to get busy in Jan. Because I seriously think we need more firepower. We do.
We've heard about this narrative, FFP narrative. Yeah, I'm not going to be not too long, guys. Make sure we hit the like button. Do subscribe to the channel if we are new. Much appreciate every single one of you watching. Just under 300 people locked into this one. Big up every single one of you. Hit that like button. Let's get well over 100 likes on this video, please. So maybe about 15 minutes more, guys, and we'll run through those comments and we're out of here. But FFP, the narrative is being pushed that Arsenal have this FFP situation. They can't spend money. They have to sell players. I think David Weinstein published it a couple of days ago. What's our way around that? How are we getting around this FFP situation? How are we going to buy players in January if FFP are on our necks? Do we have any clue what we're going to do?
There's loans. Yeah. There's loans. Arsenal have done business with loans before. We've done Ødegaard on a loan. Reyes on a loan. It might, and here's the problem, it might not be who the fans want, because at the end of the day, a lot of these players, the so-called top players, will be in Europe with their clubs. So potentially you won't be able to get them. But we do need reinforcements, Wax. We do. We do need reinforcements in this squad. And do you know what else? I think we need some speed up there. We need some speed at the top end as a striker, because teams just blocking up the middle all the time. If you got somebody who's quick, just a quick move can beat them in the box. As opposed to we're just blocked up there and Jesus is coming to feet and we're doing all this kind of thing and we're looking a bit lethargic. You know, we do need help, but every team will have FFP issues because we're in the season. So again, there might be some moving and shaking. And do you know what else? Sorry, let me just say this to finish.
Go on.
Mikel Arteta might have to get a bit ruthless and sell a couple. He might have to.
But we might have, you know what? We might have to sell someone that we don't want to sell, and that's another worry of mine as well. You know, we might, like Martinelli, maybe not in January, but it could be a summer move. Because again, if we can't remember, now we're back in the Champions League. We have a new forecast. We forecast the Champions League money. Everything comes into play. We're looking at a different look. We're looking at it from a different perspective now because we're in a bigger position, right? So if Arsenal can't continue with that momentum, if Arsenal can't, basically get results, whether it's winning a trophy, whether it's, I just don't see how Arsenal are going to be able to maintain the players and keep them at the club. It's going to be extremely difficult. Maybe one more season. But then even if we don't get the results this season, maybe as an example, we don't win the league and we're fourth in the league, so we qualify for the Champions League. That's it. Arsenal might not have the same amount of money to go into the new window with, into the summer with. Therefore, we have to sacrifice one of the players that we already have. Who is that going to be? And that's
We've
the
got players
worry
on the
for me.
bench, Wax, that we're not using. There's £50 million goalkeeper that doesn't get used, so there's 50 million straight away.
It's someone going to pay 50 million for it.
Vieira may have to go. Listen, they won't sell one of their big guns. You know what I mean? Like it'd be squad players coming in. Arsenal ain't far off from probably one or two top class players from really pushing for the league. I think they had a very good chance to win the league this year with Manchester City dropping off. You know, I didn't really see the Newcastle drop off as much as it is. Newcastle struggling with fair play at this moment in time. Going to even be tougher for them because they haven't got Champions League football. You know, I've got £70 million in the pot just for qualifying for that next stage of the Champions League. If we go deep into the Champions League, we get some bigger, more money. So that's one way to go in it. And somewhere along the line, you cannot. Because listen, there's a lot of talk about Ramsdale, but you know, Smith Rowe's not going to be wanting to sit on the bench for very much longer before that comes to a head. The same with Vieira, because that's another one that hasn't quite worked out. Like, you know, so there is money. There is money on there. The thing is with Ramsdale and also Smith Rowe, they've got the English tax on them as well. Like, you know, so that bumps their transfer fees up to probably more than what they wouldn't be. Where, you know, so I don't think Arsenal will be that. And listen, guys, a year or two in the Champions League, you'll be all right, like, you know, because Manchester City and Manchester United ain't worried about. Man United have got to worry about fair play now because they've got money, but they can't. But with what's going on, because they've not done well in the Champions League, so. I think Arsenal will be all right in that thing, but they definitely listen. You don't spend £105 million if you're skint.
Yeah, and you don't spend 105 million if you got FFP on your neck and you commit to it over a 2-year period. That doesn't make any sense. That's the reason why I think this FFP stuff is just not. It's just not there for me.
Well, West Ham played hardball with that, didn't they? And after seeing what Declan Rice can do, I don't blame them. Absolutely. You know, at first, when you heard about the 105 million, everybody was questioning that. I said, 65, 70 million, I'm happy with that. But since Declan Rice has been here, I have no questions over that 100 million whatsoever. I think he has been phenomenal. And definitely the standout player for the season so far, you know. I'm just worried that we need to add a few more players to the team and we're going to struggle to get it done. But let's see what happens. I think this January we will do. I don't hold my hopes up for anybody this January. I'll be very surprised. I don't think we get forward him. Let's be honest. I don't think we will. Might get in a couple of areas. You have a look at last season. All of those 3 players that we signed, Kivior, Jorginho, and Trossard. None of them are regulars in the first team. None of them.
Yeah, and that's even questionable though. You know, when you're in mid-season, going for the league, you're 7 points in front, you've got the opportunity to actually sign someone that can impact your team and really carry you over the line, and you sign 3 players that still are not even first-team players a whole year later. It feels like a waste. Yeah,
but Wax, that's exactly that point is the problem, because we had no Champions League football. Again, because of FFP, there has to be a balancing of the books. That's why we have been playing catch up all the time. Man City's been in this Champions League for years and years and years and years and years and years. You know, most of the others, Chelsea's and all that, have been in there years and years. We haven't. We've been out of it for a while. So now we're playing catch up because, one, you know, if you want the best players, you've got to be in the Champions League. This is our first year back in the Champions League, guys. So it's a. And I know Arsenal can attract them. We can attract them. But to do it on a consistent basis, we need to be 2, 3, 4 years in this Champions League to really drum up Arsenal are a serious club. Arsenal are serious again. Arsenal are serious again. And hopefully, you know, we want to be able to get over the line while we're being serious and win a league title.
Absolutely. Hopefully it's this season, man. Hopes up.
Exactly.
My hopes are. I don't want to get my hopes up, but let's make sure, you know. Anyway, last thing that I want to touch on before we wrap this up is what do we see? What's success for us this season? I think someone asked this in the chat. What is success for us this season? Is it winning the Premier League? Is it you know, challenging Man City all of the way and only finishing 1 point behind them, finishing second? Is it winning a trophy this season? What is success for Arsenal this season and Mikel Arteta?
Silverware. It's got to be.
Silverware, yeah. Listen, and also context of it, Kev. You know what I mean? If Arsenal lose challenge like they did last season for Man City and end up not winning nothing, I'm going to be disappointed. But like I'd say, we give it a good go. But if we, if people are going, oh yeah, get fourth, and we are, I'm not going to be happy if we're fourth and Tottenham and Aston Villa are above us and things like that. Like no, so and listen, no club. And that includes Manchester United, Chelsea, and have got any divine right to win a trophy. It's a tough thing to do. I've seen a lot of the comments like, "Oh, one trophy in 4 years." You know what I mean? Like you're up against Manchester City. Take Manchester City out of that. They've been winning everything. You know what I mean? Liverpool got 96 points or 97 points and still didn't win a league. You know what I mean? So you've got to put it all into context when it goes into it. Like challenging for a title is something that we've not done for a very, very long while. Need to do it again and then go all the way and try and win it. Listen, we could end up winning the Champions League because it's a cup competition, but I don't want to see us falling out of a whim of things like, you know what I mean? Like say, for instance, going out of the FA Cup on Sunday and then not competing in the Champions League. I want us competing in the Champions League, by the way. I don't want us just going out against Porto because that would be another waste. So I'm not one of these people who says, oh, it's got to be a trophy, but I've got to see some sort of context to where it is. A challenge for the title and just missing it by a point or 2 points is no disgrace when you're playing up against Manchester City like last season. But somewhere along the line, I do agree that we have to win a trophy somewhere along the line, and a big one.
Absolutely.
Silverware for me, Wax.
If that doesn't happen? So if we don't win silverware, we don't win a trophy this season, what next?
We haven't had a successful season.
Did we sack the manager?
No.
Pressure's on him.
No, we don't. We don't sack the manager.
But not after 4 years. 4 years, no trophy, 700 million spent.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I know, Wax, and I know a lot of people were ready to pull the trigger. Let's get rid of him because here's the problem, you see. Who do you bring in to win it?
Oh, there's numbers of managers out there, mate. I'll tell you.
But who do you bring in to win it? Because here's what you got to remember. You're going up against two of the most successful teams ever in the Premier League. You haven't got a stronger squad as them. So you don't have a divine right to win it. So that's probably why you don't win it, because you haven't got the same level of player throughout your squad. Why not lick your wounds and really go for it? As opposed
what are you saying now, Kev, if he's not in top four, though?
Sorry?
Are you saying that if he gets top four, but what are you saying if he don't get top four?
Well, I expect us to get top four.
Yeah, but say like he don't.
If he don't get top four, like you just said, Lee, maybe there's context. Yeah. Maybe there's context in the thing like, okay, let's say we go deeper in the Champions League and he starts tinkering with the team for the league.
Yeah, and lose out on the final or something like that. I get what you're saying, yeah.
You know, so we have to wait and see, as far as I'm concerned.
So no, I can't accept that. So you're saying,
but that's fine, Wax. You're asking me. That's my opinion.
I appreciate your opinion.
You can hire and fire and do what you want. You can hire and fire and do what you want. But here's one thing I do know: other teams have signed these so-called managers who have won all the trophies and won nothing.
Yeah, I know you're referring to.
If we got to the final of the Champions League and we lost on penalties, that's context, and it's surely are you saying like, oh, you know, that if we get to the final and we don't win it, you'd sack the manager? I'm not so sure.
All right, so you mentioned if we don't get top four, but we get to the Champions League final. I mean, I'm not saying that we. Listen, I'm going to say you now. This is if we don't get top four and we go out against Porto,
he's under heavy pressure.
He's not
sacked. He's not sacked.
In my opinion, he should be.
I don't think.
In my opinion, he should be. If we don't get top four, if Tottenham come above us, Aston Villa, and we don't get top four, and he doesn't win the champion, he doesn't get to the final of the Champions League, or you know, like say he's out of everything. Yeah, 100%. But I don't. I think that we'll do a little bit better than that.
Yeah, I expect us to.
I expect us, and if we don't, I'm going to be bloody disappointed.
Question, of course, 100%.
Yeah.
You'd be disappointed, big time.
Yeah.
Wax is hiring and firing, spraying, man.
No, you know what it is? I'll give a process. I'll give years. Like, come on, logically, like we've seen it. We're football guys. We've been here, and we're old school as well. We're not like the new school guys out here. We're old school. We understand the traditions of football, the traditional values of football, the traditional values of being a football fan. We understand all of that. And in previous years, we've seen that. Look, 24 months, 36 months. A manager doesn't need more than that unless you are working on a small-ass project with like Crystal Palace but when you talk about Arsenal, you talk about Man United, you talk about these teams like that, 20, come on, man. 24 months, 36 months, there should be results. You can't tell me, like, I've spent £700 million and I can't even offer you a Premier League. Oh, man.
Wax, you're answering your own question. When I said to you about Manchester City and Liverpool squad, you agreed their squads are better than ours. And that's with us spending 600-700 million.
But then whose fault is that then? Because we've spent that money. If we actually look at how much money Pep Guardiola spent in the space of time that Arteta's been at Arsenal, I think he only does Arteta out of like maybe 200 million or some craziness like that. But they already had a good team.
That's because he's got the 10, 20 years of the billions spent.
Yeah,
and
I hear you.
And being in the Champions League year after.
But
don't forget this as well, Wax.
Go on.
Don't forget this. Pep Guardiola is the best manager in the world. He is. How long has it taken him to win that Champions League for Manchester City when they've had all these top quality players? It takes time. It takes, and as fans, we want it now. We want it microwave. Put it in the microwave, ping, we win it. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately.
I hear you. Just the last thing, because I know Lee's got to go. Last thing that I wanted to mention on what we're saying here is that I think, look, we spent a lot of money, and I think a lot of the players that have been identified haven't been good enough, and that's the reason why we're behind Man City. I think we could have gone out there and got better players for the amount of money that we've spent, but it is what it is. It is what it is. Anyway, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Raw and Uncut. This is the first time we're doing this, episode 1. I'm going to try and do it again with the same guests and newer guests as well. So I'm looking forward to doing it.
Come back and we're going to have to answer that question, Lee, with what Wax just said. Because you know what? Not having Champions League football and then going and getting better players than Manchester City, I think that's a tough ask.
Yeah, we'll have to get back when we know a little bit more. We don't quite know what's going to happen at the moment, do we? So.
No worries, guys.
A month, Wax.
We'll do it.
Yeah, in a month we know. After Porto, we know.
Yeah,
we'll make a date. We'll do it after transfer deadline day.
Yeah, we'll have to do it then. Yeah.
All right, cool. All right. No worries.
Say no more. All right, guys, hit the like button. Do subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell. And I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Peace.